The shooting was tragic and the police response infuriating. I want to just ask you guys what the experience has been for you all, just being in Texas and Texans.
This is an opportunity to educate people about how things work, not just registering people to vote like we did on Friday last week, or telling them to vote like we did on Friday last week, but also recognizing that Uvalde is heavily Latina. And with that recognition, we also must be sensitive to people who are undocumented and can't vote, and how to be inclusive of them in the electoral process until they can get citizenship, number one. Number two, we need to bird dog the hell out of our legislative members and our executive branch, the governor, the attorney general, the lieutenant governor, and every single Republican in the Texas legislature, because we need to get people to start showing up at the Texas legislature when these bills get into committee so that we can shut it down. And we need to make sure our legislators here, which in the Texas law requires that a legislator must make access available to anyone who can't make it to the Capitol. So their offices in the local city, in the local area, can be used as a space to testify remotely if someone can't make it. There's a host of things that we can teach people about this, about how these laws directly affect them, about how these laws passed last year with one legislative session and 3 special sessions to marginalize people who look like us, suppress voters who look like us, and to make sure that people understand that the legislature meets every other year. That means every 2 years for 5 months, if that. And they jam all of these bills through. And I can tell you, they do it in a way that is not very progressive, in the context that they will announce a bill and have a committee meeting the same day at 6 o'clock in the morning when no one can show up. So it's not just on us to show up. It's also on us to make sure that people have access by making sure elected officials don't do the things that they're doing, the sneaky, underhanded things that they're doing. We need more than just Democrats taking off and going to D.C. and different cities and it was a great thing they did that, but to do more than just break quorum. We need people to not be cowards. We need people not to give us lip service. I'm not talking about the thoughts and prayers crap, the turn of the cheek crap. We also have to honor the victims of all of these shootings from Buffalo and California and Dallas. You've had synagogues shot up. You've had mosques burned down and being shot at, and mass murders happening in churches, Mother Emanuel. You've had grocery stores. Of course, you've had schools at every level. There was a shooting in my hometown of New Orleans at Xavier University while people were trying to freaking graduate. The reality is we need to raise the age. We need to make sure licensing is put back into place. We need to actually have a healthcare system that also addresses mental health in a holistic way that improves people's quality of life, meaning we must stop using our jails and prisons as mental health care facilities. We must address the fact that we've been, as a collective, not me, because I don't like the police, but as a collective have been putting police in a situation of reverence, in a situation of untouchableness. And now you have the Uvalde Police Department not working with other investigators. They're retracting statements every 5 minutes. This is a moment for accountability. And yes, we must again talk about defunding the police and making sure that we have a police system, since people have to be privileged and feel like we need some protection in place. You don't want to address the fact that we keep having crime that's supposedly rising, but we're not addressing the fact that evictions, even in Houston, as I speak right now, are rising every day and causing people to have housing insecurity, which also spikes crime and causes people to do what happened in Uvalde. And let's also talk about the elephant in the room, the racism of it all. I don't care what the shooter looked like. There are people who have self-internalized racism that do not like people that look like them, regardless of what the reasoning was. The 87-year-old woman who died in the grocery store, who lived through Jim Crow, who was asked to wait and live through incremental change. Our children, no matter what they look like, do not deserve that. The time is now.
I have 4 kids, and they go to different schools, and they have different challenges in schools. The one thing that shocks me, out of the many things that shock me about this day and age, is that they not only have to prepare for a hurricane, tornado, now it's a shooter. And it's been like this since Sandy Hook. So it's been about 10 years or so. And when I sat down with my kids and I asked them, what is it that you do, that you're told to do, that you're trained to do if there's a shooter on campus? And the only thing that they are trained to do, unfortunately, that they have to be prepared for this, is hide under their desks. There's only one door into that classroom and one door out. It's the same damn door down a hallway. There is nothing that is going to protect these kids in schools other than changing legislation from the bottom to the top. However the hell we can do it, we must do it. And we cannot rely on one person to do it. It has to be a collective effort, because it's not just one specific child. It's not just one specific group of people. This gun violence epidemic is happening across the board. And raising the age at the minimum would prevent 18-year-olds with no criminal record, no mental health record on file, from getting these guns, these high-powered guns of AR-15s. They should be banned. They do not belong on the streets. They do not belong in our schools. And certainly the good guy with the gun theory doesn't do a damn thing to protect these kids, because there was plenty of people on that campus, in that neighborhood. They were supposedly good guys with guns that did not a goddamn thing to save those kids other than save their own asses. And I'm tired of having to look through the media. And I had to take a break personally, because my entire timeline was filled with not just the inconsistent stories and reporting and inaccuracies from the police, but then I had to look through each and every single report from these children saying, I called the police. We told them the shooter was there. They shot my friend. And then to hear that these kids had to be identified through DNA, because those bullets, those aren't regular bullets. Those bullets are meant to cause massive internal damage. They are essentially a bomb and shrapnel that when they hit something, it explodes, and shrapnel, it completely goes through the entire human body. And it is absolutely dangerous, irresponsible, negligent of these politicians to continue to take money from the NRA and expect us to just be settled with thoughts and prayers, because that is not enough, and it will never be enough, and it will never bring back our children. And to hear that these children were literally praying in class, and that didn't save them. What would have saved them, what would have saved those kids, is if we did not pass legislation to benefit gun manufacturers, the NRA, these lobbyists. That's what would have saved our kids. Healthcare, of course, would have saved our kids. Having access isn't enough. Making sure that we have it available from urban areas to rural areas across the country, and make sure that we establish a system that is going to be accessible regardless of if you know how to pay or have means to pay it. None of these social programs should be means tested, because if they're there and in place and available and offered at every single turn, we would have mental health. We would have preventative health care across the board. And as a mother, I have to ask them every single day, what are the conditions in which your school is in? Because even in school, they would much rather fund a resource officer with a gun than fund mental health counseling on school campus. And that to me is the greatest travesty of all, is that we're starting them very young, conditioning them to this violence. And like Claudia said, this is a cycle. This is a cycle of conditioning for violence, preparing our kids to be violent children so that they can recruit them into an even bigger, oppressive, exploitative system of the military-industrial complex. And although I've heard reports of this doesn't happen in other countries, it sure as goddamn does happen in other countries, except it's the American government that is the aggressor, going in with guns, weapons, and blowing up other people in other countries with people who do not have guns.
Right.
So there has to be a limit, and we have to draw the line somewhere, and we have to fight back by any means necessary. And if that means, and I know some people are going to be pissed at this, but oh, what the fuck ever, if we have to run as Democrats to get shit done, then that's what we have to do. And anyone who wants to run as in any other party, then fine, more power to them. But we have to do this by any means necessary, by any way that we can, to change the system from outside, from the inside, from however which way we can, so that we can ensure that our children, their children, their children's children are going to have a better future, and not have to send their kids to school and not get them home in one piece, safe and sound.
I am completely dumbfounded with why we have not taken action, why this is something, it's almost like a ritual practice at this point, to where a shooting happens. We have senators that are funded by the NRA that are saying, we send our deepest thoughts and prayer. We are fervently lifting up all of the families and all of those impacted by this terrible incident. When in reality, this is not something that we should any longer be talking about. And it is not an incident. At this point, it is a cycle. It is a cycle that we have the opportunity to end. And as someone living in Texas, I know that Uvalde does not fall within the 21st congressional district, but it's neighbors. It is, we touch borders with Uvalde. And my heart breaks knowing that our communities are being completely exploited and are being completely neglected by elected officials who have nothing better to do than fill their own pockets. And at this point, I'm just angry. There's hurt, but I've used that and I'm channeling that into anger and action. Be angry. You are allowed to be angry. And let's really show up at the ballot box in November to say, yeah, we've had enough. This is it. Ya basta.